online site Flight Aware, which is historically a very reliable source of information. This plane took off from Hobby Airport at 2:17 this afternoon. So that's just coming up on 20 minutes now. So 2:17 from Hobby Airport. It did not list a destination, which is interesting. It also did not list any registration for this aircraft, which is a bit strange. And perhaps one reason why is if you see the zoomed in photos, there is no tail number that we normally see. A tail number on an aircraft usually begins with the letter N for all registered aircraft in the United States. The history of this plane, however, was that 2 days ago on May the 4th, it took off from Veracruz, Mexico, landed in McAllen, Texas. So perhaps the numbers on the side of that plane you can see, XBFQS, are perhaps not registered in the United States, but rather Mexico. I'm not too familiar with that, but normally you would see an N number. We can do a quick search to find out the owner, the registration, the history of the plane. So we do know it came from Mexico 2 days ago, went to Texas, and then just this afternoon took off from Hobby around 2:17, but that's all we have right now.
So it crashed just a few minutes after takeoff then. We're talking, it's 2:37 now, and they've been able, it's crashed, and we've got emergency crews there, and they've been able to put out the flame. So all of this happening very quickly.
Yeah, and in fact, according to the FlightAware map, you can see they actually graph the flight pattern of the aircraft, and it was coming off a runway off the southeast and ended shortly afterwards. So it didn't appear, does not appear that this aircraft was in the air for any considerable amount of time. We're talking a couple of minutes at best. What we're going to do, Reka and Ron, is go back and listen to air traffic control from Hobby to see if we can pick up some traffic between the tower and the aircraft and learn a little bit more. So we're going to do that, and we'll come back with you.
All right, thank you so much, Jeremy Rogowski. So it is possible this plane may have been registered in Mexico. We see more firefighters approaching the plane, looking through the windows. We're trying to figure out how many people were on board. And there's a map to give you a better gauge of where we're talking about. This area near Hobby Airport, just right behind Adobe High School. This plane, the skid marks, from the skid marks, scorched earth, you can tell it was just a few feet from hitting the track and the tennis courts behind the school, but narrowly missed them, and then crashed into that fence or a couple of fences there behind those two homes, catching.
Yeah, that pergola on fire right there.
Got that on fire, and we saw one of the homeowners out there with a garden hose doing the best they could to try to put out some of the flames.
I can't imagine what that crash might have sounded like for those neighbors in those homes there, but very scary to have a plane just a few feet from your house. Again, we don't see a lot of, we do see one ambulance there, but I don't see a lot of other emergency vehicles, so
there are
hoping
some
that
there are some on the street in front of the homes, but something might have happened before we got our picture, and perhaps whoever was in that plane was able to safely get out of the plane, we're hoping.
It's still working to identify how many people were on the plane and who was the pilot, because as we just spoke with Jeremy Rogowski, this plane crashing just minutes after takeoff from Hobby Airport did not list a destination, no registration for this aircraft, possibly because it could be registered in Mexico, and no tail number there. So just trying to figure out, the owner, the pilot, and other details that should be coming in the next few minutes as those firefighters put out some of the hot spots there. But it looks like the major flames are out.
Yeah, and again, this plane took off from Hobby at 2:17 this afternoon, and may have been registered in Mexico. We're trying to get out trying to get to some more details for you. And as we heard from David Paul earlier, and as you can tell by just looking outside your window, the weather was not an issue at all this afternoon. You don't want to speculate about what might have caused this crash, but it could have perhaps been something mechanical with the plane. We don't know yet. Obviously, investigation takes weeks, but as Air 11 gets a different vantage point from the front of the plane.
And we know that this plane just 2 days ago flew from Veracruz, Mexico to McAllen, Texas, and then today flying out of Hobby Airport. before this crash happened. So we're waiting to get more details about this. But again, this is very close to Adobe High School as it crashed just feet away from those homes right there nearby.
Obviously, this could have been a lot worse because the school is nearby, and obviously those homes right there. But thank goodness the backyard fences provided some kind of slowing down of that plane as it was just dragging across that field behind these homes. Slowed it down enough to where it didn't crash into the actual structures. We've got a number of emergency vehicles that are parked in the field behind these homes, also in front of the homes, as their investigation is underway right now. Try to zoom in as much as we can into that plane, but it's hard to see what's inside.
We are getting some viewer video into our newsroom right now, and hopefully we're going to get it up in a little bit. But just to describe, you see all those firefighters out there. You saw a lot of smoke. Moments before all of this, the plane had sort of hit the ground and it caught on fire, where you see that big black patch in the grassy area, and of course caught the maybe gazebo on fire as well, kind of in the neighbor's yard before it crashed through that fence right there. So it doesn't appear that the aircraft itself caught fire at any moment, but again, we're going to have to look at all of this, and the investigation will kind of give us better details as to what exactly happened.
Yeah, it looks like one of the landing gear tires under that right wing, and the left part of the plane obviously sustained a lot of fire damage.
We do have a crew on the way, and hopefully we'll get some answers from the ground as they arrive in that area. But we are watching this via Air 11 and watching it live, a crash that happened, a plane taking off from Hobby Airport, and then minutes later crashing in the area by Adobe High School, just minutes away, and minutes after takeoff, we should say.
Yeah.
But we don't know where that plane was headed. That information unclear right now, since there was no destination listed, which is our investigative reporter Jeremy Rogalski was saying is quite unusual. Also, no registration number for this aircraft, no tail number. But again, very possible that this aircraft is registered in Mexico. So we're working to get that information from you, for you, so we can have a better idea of who was on board, what was on board.
You can see the emergency vehicles in front of the homes and behind the homes in the field.
And in the neighborhood right there, you see more fire trucks pulling up to offer support to firefighters on the ground back there, who again are still putting out some hot spots.
Just at the very edge of that cul-de-sac. And if you're just joining us, what we can tell you is that this plane took off at 2:17 from Hobby Airport this afternoon, not very long ago, maybe about, 30 minutes ago. And it crashed into that field and slid into a backyard, or two backyards, of this neighborhood near Hobby Airport and near Adobe High School. There were some flames. One of the homeowners came out there with a garden hose, started splashing the flames, and of course then the firefighters arrived and put out the rest of the flames and are checking for hot spots now, setting up a perimeter, as you can see. We don't have any information about how many people were on board this plane. We're trying to find that out right now to see if anybody was injured. And it's quite possible they may have left the plane before we got our picture from Air 11.
Trying to get an idea of, or a name of that street, if it's possible. Just kind of asking our producers right now, the street where that home sits along, just trying to get a better idea to give our viewers where exactly this crashed, if they're not familiar with this southeast area in town near Adobe High School. Again, just minutes away from Hobby Airport, the plane crashing just minutes after taking off at 2:17 this afternoon.
Yeah, just narrowly missing the school, Adobe High School, and luckily did not have enough momentum to crash into the backyard of either of those two homes right there. I'm sure the fences did slow it down, thank goodness. We're hoping nobody was hurt at all in this accident. We still don't know how many people were on the plane, and as emergency crews continue to just douse more water on the backyards here to make sure that you can see some smoldering going on. Just extinguishing all the hot spots so they can get their investigation into full swing to figure out just what caused this to happen.
Again, we're still trying to figure out how many people were on that plane, if it was just the pilot, if there were other passengers on board. And when we had Air 11 get to the scene, you know, it happened so quickly, but again, we don't know how many people had to be taken to the hospital and the extent of their possible injuries, as they're bringing out that yellow tape now to kind of cordon off the areas so they can start their investigation. But it looks like firefighters are backing off now, and it looks like they are satisfied with.
And there's Dobie High School there in the back as kids are being let out of school.
And if you look at the screen, you can kind of see the skid marks there. You can see the path that the plane came down on that grassy field.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the normal time for kids to go home or if it's early dismissal because of what's happened here, but you can see all the kids leaving school.
Of course, with the flames erupting and the concerns with jet fuel on that plane.
Well, look what the skid marks start, right at the very edge of the track and right next to the
tennis courts. Yeah, and you can see several.
I mean, you got to say thank goodness that there weren't kids out in this field.
Yeah, absolutely.
Working out or running around.
And of course, concerns for folks living there if anyone was in their backyard. So hopefully everyone was safe.
The plane hits the ground near the track and then drags all the way down to the backyard here, and it hits these two fences, catches this gazebo on fire. I think there's a hot tub there.
Yes, it looks like there's a hot tub in there.
Caught the hot tub cover on fire. And one of the homeowners was out there with a garden hose putting out some of the flames.
It appears in the picture you can see a person on the inside of the fence. Okay, so this is the
Dobie 9th grade center, we're being told. Not Dobie High School, but the 9th grade center. So it was the Dobie 9th grade center that's nearby, near this neighborhood.
Okay, Dobie 9th grade center is off of Monroe Boulevard.
Okay.
All right, and that's giving us a better idea of where exactly we are. So it looks like those homes there are off of Tallow Briar Lane. So, or I'm sorry, Heath Glen Lane. So Heath Glen Lane is where those homes are along, and it is their backyard, one of the homes there.
Okay. We're getting information from air traffic control traffic that apparently the pilot reported the recorded audio. There was some engine trouble, and the pilot was attempting to make it back, and then 10 seconds later reported that they would not be able to make it back to Hobby Airport. So we're getting that information just from what we recorded from air traffic controllers. Jeremy Rogowski is back. Have you learned some new information, Jeremy?
Yeah, we were monitoring that traffic control with the tower at Hobby Airport and this aircraft, and you're right. Here's kind of the chain of events, Ron. Around 2:15 and a half, the tower called out the call signs, X-ray Bravo Foxtrot, for this aircraft, said you're clear for takeoff, told the pilot about wind speeds and so forth. And then approximately 2 minutes after that, the pilot did indeed transmit back to the tower saying, quote, "We are having problems with our engine. We need to turn back to airport as soon as possible." The reply from air traffic controllers went along the lines of, "What do you need? What type of help? What type of assistance?" To which the pilot replied to the tower, "No, we are not going to make it." The tower again asking, "What do you need from that pilot?" And we're still checking that back and forth between the tower and the pilot, but so far that's the last transmission that we heard, was the tower to the pilot saying, "What do you need?" And that was it. So, obviously this whole thing happened roughly in 2 minutes time, and that goes back to what we were saying based on what we saw from the online platform FlightAware, that this aircraft took off at 2:17 or thereabouts, and then obviously came to rest here and crashed not too far from the southeast runway there at Hobby.
And is there any way to figure out how many people were on board?
We don't. Again, you know, normally, and we don't know a whole lot more about the aircraft as well, Ron, because normally planes registered with the FAA in the United States would have an N number. This, of course, as we saw in close-ups of that aircraft, you know, beginning with the letters X, B, F, and so there is no registration on that. Obviously, it's a twin-engine, smaller aircraft. You know, just by the size of it, you know, you're probably talking a half a dozen tops. Now, this is just a visual observation, nothing more.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the amount of windows that you see on the fuselage there.
Right, but again, you know, there was no Mayday or anything along that nature. It all was pretty short transmissions between the tower and the pilot. But again, we did hear that the pilot said we were having problems with our engine. We need to turn back to the airport as soon as possible. The tower asking, what do you need? Trying to clear a runway, ostensibly, for his return. And the pilot replying, no, we are not going to make it.
And I'm not a pilot, but you're up there in the air and you're having engine trouble and you see this huge field.
Sure.
You know, and that's what you're going to take.
Do we have any indication of where the plane may be going now? I know originally they hadn't listed that, and they hadn't listed a destination.
They had not.
That was still unclear right now.
Right,
okay.
that we had not. Again, the history of this plane, it was in McAllen 2 days ago, and coming, you know, departing from Houston Hobby this afternoon. Destination not listed, at least on the documents that we've reviewed. So.
And then you can see emergency workers going back into the plane. It looks like at least, well, no, it looks like they're just taking measurements at this point. But so engine trouble, but you can't blame it on the weather, David Paul.
No, the weather is as good as it gets. We've got unlimited visibility, blue sky. We have a very light south breeze outside right now.
So luckily for the pilot encountering engine trouble, didn't have to worry about the weather.
I mean, just listening to what you guys are saying, listening to the report, the conversation between the plane and the tower, and looking at the pictures, this is almost as good a scenario as you could have ever dreamt for. If you're going to have a plane of that size, and that's a significant aircraft, that's a twin engine, that can hold a lot of people, as good an outcome possibly as you could have dreamt of. He found a little space to put it down. Thank God it appears there weren't any kids out on that track at that time.
Right.
He bumped into the fence, and as long as no one was hurt in this person's home in the backyard, it looks like the fuselage is in pretty good shape. I'm sure it was a hard hit. There could still be some significant injuries there, but overall,
I think the scary thing, though, was when the plane crashed and you see that big burnt-out black spot behind the plane. That caught fire. That gazebo caught fire along with the fence. So you just worry, especially with that amount of jet fuel flames spreading. But clearly the wind was not a factor there.
On the phone right now, we have somebody with Pasadena ISD who wants to talk with us. Art, I'm sorry, Art, I did not get your last name. Art, can you tell us?
Art Del Barrio.
Art, can you tell us any information?
Yeah, well, I mean, right now we are just very blessed to have had a pilot that did some quick thinking and avoided our campus, avoided our kids, and was able to land in a field on our campus safely for himself and his passengers and the kids of our district.
Yeah, we're thinking the same thing. Do you have any other information about how many people were on board? Do you have anything like that?
As of right now, we're gathering information. I mean, it's clear on the other Pasadena's. It's clear on the other side of town. We've got people out there right now. But what I do know is that it was right coming up on dismissal time, and when the plane was coming down, they made a safe emergency landing, and I mean, really, just at any other given time of the day, there could have been kids all over that field, and it was just just a blessing. Everything the way it transpired.
Well, thank goodness for that. Now, any indication on the condition of the pilot?
From what I've heard, and I cannot confirm this, but I understand everybody was able to get off the plane safely.
Well, that is fantastic news if it is true, and we hope to get that confirmed. Art, can you tell us anything else about about the kids there, what they've been instructed to do, or anything?
Well, at the time of the incident, it was right around dismissal. They went ahead and delayed dismissal until they could get an assessment of what was going on. Once first responders, everyone got there, and the area was deemed safe, then students were released to their parents.
All right.
Anything that parents need to know, parents with students at Dobie 9th Grade Center, as far as picking them up and getting them out of there today?
Yeah, as of right now, everything is, I believe everyone is dismissal is normal.
Okay.
All right.
You know, they could probably expect some traffic delays in the area as there's a lot of first responders and a lot of traffic backup in the area, and it may take a little longer. But like I said, we did delay dismissal until everything was deemed safe, and once we got the go-ahead to release, students have been released.
Thank you. Art Del Barrio with Pasadena ISD. We appreciate this.
Oh, you're welcome.
We're going to have to wrap this up for now. The good news is we're hoping nobody was seriously hurt in this plane crash. We're going to have full details on KHOU 11 News at 4, the 411. Go to our website too, khou.com.
Right here on Let's Make a Deal. Bye-bye. I love you, Mama.
Are you ready?
Get on your feet. This is really exciting, everyone.